Hello, my name is Dana Connors, and it's my pleasure to welcome you back once again to the weekly edition of the Maine Take. It's a program brought to you by the Maine State Chamber of Commerce. And each week we take an inside look at the issues affecting our people and our economy. Those are two issues that unite all of us, regardless of where we live, what we do, or our political position. We may have different ways of reaching success, but clearly the value of each are not in question. On our recent programs, we've had the pleasure of interviewing Governor Janet Mills, as well as a Republican leader in the Senate, Jeff Timberlake. On each interview, separate interviews, if you will, we had the advantage of being able to hear from them, their perspective on the challenges as well as the opportunities of this year's session, as well as some of the issues facing our state. Well, today we continue with that theme and welcome the Speaker of the Maine House of Representatives, Ryan Fecteau. Ryan, it's wonderful to have you with us today. We thank you so much for taking the time.
Well, great to be here, Dana. Thank you for the invitation. I'm looking forward to the conversation and having the opportunity to share what's happening in Augusta and the work that's being done.
And we certainly look forward to it as well. But before we begin that, I want to give our audience, I can imagine there are many that don't know of our speaker, but for those who may not, let me tell you a bit about him. He is from Biddeford, where he was born and raised. He attended college at the Catholic University of America in Washington, D.C. And interestingly enough, he majored in political science, theology, and religious studies. I can't imagine a better preparation for the positions that you've occupied in the last 8 years. This year will be his finished term, if you will, for as Speaker, and it will also be his 4th term serving in the House of Representatives. That experience all began at the age of 21, and today, he's at ripe old age of 29. He is the youngest presiding officer in a state legislature in our nation, as well as here in Maine. And before being elected Speaker, he served as the House Chair of Maine's then Committee, Labor, Commerce, Research, and Economic Development, as well as Assistant Majority Leader. I will say this, as I have known him and as the record will show, that throughout his 8 years, he has been a champion for people in general, our older people, our younger people, our families. Career technical education, an issue very important to our economy at this time, has been front and center for him. Securing full equality for all Maine people, including rights for our LGBTQ community, extremely important. And today, 2 very issues have been brought forward by our strategic plan before the pandemic, but really moved into a crisis stage, if you will, by virtue of the COVID. That's where we begin our interview. Speaker Fecteau, at 21, I begin with this question that is very young, very ambitious. What motivated you to seek elected office at that time?
Great question. I was definitely much younger and had fewer wrinkles near my eyes at that point in time. But in all seriousness, the reason why I ran was because I was seeing so many of my peers, young people who either went to school here in Maine or went away for college, and everyone in between, and they were saying that Maine was not a place that they had planned to move back to or stay in to advance their careers after graduating from college. And we had seen the statistics. We had seen the numbers of Maine becoming the oldest state in the nation by age, and more young people choosing to seek opportunities, job opportunities elsewhere. And I wanted to be a part of the solution. I wanted to be at the table in Augusta, having the conversations with other lawmakers and bureaucrats about how do we solve this challenge? How do we bring our young people home? How do we keep them here in the state? how do we make sure that they feel like there's a place for them in this economy and in the future of Maine? And I think we've made a lot of great headway on this issue, but keeping young people here in our state. We have more work to do, but I've been very thankful and very grateful to be a part of the work that's been ongoing in the Maine legislature to make sure that young people see themselves in the future of our state. I don't take full credit for this, but in the time I've served in the legislature, Biddeford, my hometown, part of the district I represent, has become the youngest city in the state. We took that title from Bangor, which previously held it, and I'm very grateful that we have a younger population here in Biddeford that are moving here, working here, and calling our community home.
Well, it's a very important position to have as a community, because we all know that, and you mentioned it earlier, that being the oldest state, the goal is to seek people like yourself and others within our communities, and in particular, as you have done, in key positions of leadership. I so much want to talk about the issues that I teed up, both housing and childcare, but I want to begin with something I had mentioned in the introduction, because of your leadership in this area and because of the important role that career technical education plays in the success of our economy today. When we recognize those skills and those trades mean so much to our economic success. You came into that pretty early on. Talk about that, because I found it to be so ahead of the curve for our state.
Yeah, well, I saw the need here in my own community. Biddeford is one of the towns that hosts a CTE school. We have 28 of them across the state. And even though the CTE school is in Biddeford, it services surrounding communities. So high school students from other towns nearby send their students to our CTE school. And Biddeford was a good example of just the need that exists for updating equipment, making capital improvements to these buildings where these really important programs are being housed. Because we renovated our high school for $34 million. Biddeford taxpayers approved a bond question that went out and renovated the high school, which is right next to our CTE school. But the CTE school was not part of that project. So $34 million for the standard curriculum at the high school level, but not for renovating and upgrading the equipment and the capital improvements at the CTE school. And so I saw right here in my own community just how we lacked the kind of investment that was needed to make sure that these programs were functioning at the highest level possible. And in fact, we had not sent out a bond or had made a statewide investment since 1998 in our CT schools. And that was a $5 million statewide bond that, as you can imagine, was overwhelmingly approved by voters back in 1998. So here I was, elected in 2014 and serving in my first term in 2015. And we had not had a bond question or a statewide investment since 1998. It was long overdue. It was time to make the investment in these really important programs that are training young people for the jobs that are currently out there. And I had heard knocking doors in my community from voters who were saying they couldn't get a plumber to come to their home to do just a simple job because there were so few of them, and they were chasing the bigger jobs that had more value to them. And so I put a bill in my first term, my second term, my third term. Unfortunately, we fell short in getting those bills passed, those 3 terms. But here in my 4th term, we strike. We finally get a strike. We had success with passing a $20 million bond question for our CT schools, and then the governor made a very wise decision and put $20 million of American Rescue Plan dollars, federal funds, towards CT schools as well, which will go into upgrading equipment, improving the structures that these programs are housed in. We have students that are learning on equipment that hasn't been in the field for 15, 20 years. That's not preparing our young people for the future. So this is going to be a huge step forward in making sure young people, whether college is right for them or not, exactly. they can be poised to get right into the workforce.
Yeah, there's certainly no one pathway to success, and clearly the CTEs really have a critical role to play in success of so many people as well as our economy. I do want to move to the two issues that are front and center that you are shepherding through the legislative process this year, because like I said, they were critical before the pandemic, but boy, they have taken on a new level of concern in and of themselves, but how they relate to the workforce issue makes them almost one of the same in both areas, housing as well as childcare. Let's speak first to the childcare issue. What are you seeing relevant to this issue, and what does your proposal do to address this very important issue?
Yeah, you hit on the exact right point. These two issues are so intimately tied to our economic success. And if we want to build a brighter and more prosperous future for Maine families, we have to be able to tackle both of these challenges. The childcare issue is impacting our employers' abilities to find employees. You have moms and dads who have taken themselves out of the workforce because they cannot find affordable or reliable childcare in their community. And at the same time, you have folks who are the workforce behind our workforce, the childcare providers, people who are doing this work every day, who are woefully underpaid. They're in some cases graduating with a degree in early childhood education. They're going out into the field and they're getting paid just around minimum wage. Their job is too critical. The work that they're doing is so important, and we need to reward that. We need to recognize them for the critical service that they're providing to our families and ultimately to our business community as well. And so I had a bill in last session that would have created a wage supplement for childcare workers, boosting their pay on a monthly basis by a little bit. Fortunately, that bill was carried over because the governor, again, made a really good decision with the use of American Rescue Plan dollars and initiated a wage supplement on her own. And that wage supplement adds around $200 per month into the pockets of childcare workers, shoring up this workforce, because we were hearing stories about childcare workers who are leaving the workforce to go make a couple dollars more an hour just because the numbers didn't add up for their family. Everyone is working on a household budget, right? Mm-hmm. And if your job is not providing you with the kind of pay that makes that household budget work, you're going to go find something else, even if that job, working with children, is your greatest passion. If that's the thing you love the most, if the numbers don't work for taking care of your own family, you're not going to stick in that work in that employment sector. And so shoring up the workforce, making sure that we're keeping those really qualified, amazing people with experience in the childcare sector, and also attracting new folks. And I've talked to childcare providers who are able to use that $200 supplement as a way of attracting people to the workforce. Unfortunately, that money is going to expire in August of this year. And so my bill that is currently pending in the legislature would hope it intends to extend that program into the future so we can continue to build a stronger childcare workforce and thus make sure childcare is available to more and more families.
Well, kudos to you, because that is an issue that regardless of where you travel in the state, geography-wise or rural, urban setting, it's a common cry, a common need, but getting people into that position is so important, and your bill goes a long ways towards recognize the worker behind the work. So good job. Appreciate that.
Yeah, that's exactly right, Dana. In fact, I was in Caribou a few months ago at a childcare center where they had a wait list for their infant program, but they couldn't add any more infants to the program because they didn't have a second educator in that particular classroom. So here we have Caribou, Maine, not your metropolis of in the state, but still a wait list for one of these programs. Just speaks to the need that's out there, whether it's urban or rural, and everywhere in between.
No, well said. Another extremely important issue is one that we refer to as affordable housing. And I recall in 2020 that you put forward what I thought to be a revolutionary idea at the time that was based upon a tax credit and was looking at increasing the number of affordable housing units. And clearly, it has done that. It's practically doubled the investment. In fact, I think it was described as the single largest investment in housing in our history. And it was a tax credit. And I think it was October of last year when you and the governor up in the Skowhegan area actually celebrated the opening of a unit there of 40 units. But I also know that when you say affordable housing, that some people take that in different directions. Not that it's wrong, not that it's bad, but some may look at it as low income, some may look at it strictly as worker related. I'm getting the sense that for you, affordable housing is affordable housing and inclusive of all of the above.
Yeah, I think the housing challenge that we face requires us to have housing of all types. We need low income housing because for some families that's the only way they're going to have a roof over their heads. That was the case for my own family. My mom and my dad divorced when I was young, and we lived in low income housing for a portion of my life because that was what my mom could afford on the wage that she was earning working in healthcare. And that was the foundation for my family. I mean, that made all the difference in the world. It was a safe place to come back home after a school day, to do homework, to eat with my family. It provided that foundation for us to get back on our feet and find that future opportunity that would allow us to reach more into the middle class. And that is what part of the solution does require us to make sure there's more housing like that available, but also make sure that we have housing that's being developed and built for middle income earners, and making sure that they have a place where they can affordably live, where they're not putting 30, 40, 50% of their earnings towards their rent or towards their mortgage. And so those are the things that we need to solve. And that bill in 2020 took a huge step forward, and it also protected that several hundred units in rural Maine that were under a federal program set to expire. They had affordable covenants, and they were going to expire. That bill shored those up and made sure that we didn't lose affordable housing that we already had. So that was also an important piece of that bill. And as you mentioned, it's shown its worth because we were seeing the production of units increase. I think we were at 396 in 2021. We had been producing on average 250 units a year. That's not enough. We have a need of about 1,000 units per year. We've got to build more housing.
Well, you didn't stop there, that's for sure, because last year I remember that you took a very strong position in terms of red tape, how that was really being a burden to the need to increase housing stock in our state. And you also became chair of the commission that actually looked at, as I recall, land use and zoning considerations and what could be done. And you come up with a number of recommendations. I think it was around 9. Can you speak a bit to what that was and how it may help?
Well, the work of the commission is really exciting. I was grateful to be a part of the work and have a diverse group of individuals who served on that commission, from folks representing civil rights groups to affordable housing developers, agricultural interests, having a bipartisan group of lawmakers on both sides of the aisle, realtor interests at the table, low-income family advocates at the table, just having a real broad group of Mainers coming to this commission with an open mind about how do we solve these challenges. Also, municipal leaders, a representative from Maine Municipal Association. And we really dived into this issue because I think now more than ever, as you mentioned at the top, Dana, people from all angles of this issue recognize we cannot continue down this road of status quo on the issue of housing. It requires us to take action. And we had heard in my time in the legislature from folks in this industry who are saying there are communities that I just won't even consider putting a proposal forward because I know the rules, I know the red tape is truly too burdensome. that I won't be able to get the project approved. So why waste my time? And that is exactly what the commission was setting out to try to solve. How do we make sure that more communities can be a part of the solution rather than a part of the problem? Because we can't expect cities like Portland or surrounding communities like in the Portland area, or even Bangor or Presque Isle. These larger communities cannot solve the housing challenges on their own. And so the commission put forward 9 recommendations, as you mentioned, 2 of which I'm really excited about. One would allow accessory dwelling units to be built by right, so long as they meet all the requirements, water, making sure you're not overburdening the water source and wastewater and so forth. But if you want to build a small efficiency apartment or add on to your existing structure on your lot, you should be able to do so. We know so many families that have moms and dads who are aging, and running keeping up with a single family home might not be really possible for them anymore. But going to a nursing home or assisted living facility, they're not quite there yet, and maybe that's not what they want either. But their son or daughter has the ability to add on to the home that they're living in, build an in-law apartment, and we want to make sure that folks can do that. And I've heard from constituents in my 7 years of service who've said, I can't believe I can't do this. The zoning says I can't. We're going to try to solve that problem so that more families can do that. And it's not just older Mainers. It might be young Mainers who are graduating. They can't afford a rent, or they don't want to share an apartment and have to split rent and so forth. These ADUs, accessory dwelling units, could really be a part of the solution for how we increase housing stock in the state. The second big recommendation is making sure that on every lot in the state, every residential zone, a person or a developer or whomever owns the lot could build up to 4 units on that lot. So there's no more single family zone where we say this neighborhood is exclusively for single family homes. And that's not to say that single family homes won't still be built, but it's to say if you own the land and you want to build a 4-unit building on that land, and you can meet all the requirements of the zone and making sure that you're not overburdening the water source or wastewater, if you can build that building within the confines of the rules, you should be able to have up to 4 units. And there's some financing reasons as to why we chose 4 units. If you get above 4 units, the financing becomes more complex. But for 4 units, duplexes, triplexes, and quadplexes, this could be a game changer in making sure there's more housing stock on the land that we currently make available for residential building. We're not talking about adding additional land to solve this problem. We're talking about the land we already have. So it's really exciting. I'm really grateful that this commission came forward with the unanimous recommendations in many cases. And I'm looking forward to the legislature doing its job now to hear the bill and hopefully act on these recommendations, because the issue of housing is too important for any more delay.
That's said well. When do you anticipate on either childcare or housing, when are those bills likely to be up?
So the childcare bill's in a little odd state because it already had a public hearing last year.
That's right.
So it got sent back to committee. So I'm not quite sure. We're still working out some details behind the scenes on what exactly we want to do in terms of manipulating the original language, because it's sort of not applicable anymore based on how the ARPA funds were used. So we want to sort of mirror that more so than what the bill originally stated. So that should be forthcoming in the next few weeks. And then the housing bill is still being drafted. I feel bad because I gave 9 bills to the revisor's office and asked them to draft it into one. So it's been a little bit of a slower process getting that bill drafted, but it should be out soon. We will definitely communicate on my social media the public hearing date, and if there are any folks listening who want to weigh in and share their thoughts about why it's time that we make some of these changes so we can build more housing in our state, I would love for you to share your perspective with the Committee of Jurisdiction.
Yeah, extremely important. It's an issue of having supply meet the demand, and we know the demand is so strong. So yeah, it would be great for when you think about the various interest groups that were part of that commission that don't always agree in this instance because of the urgency of the issue and the alternatives that were available. I think it's remarkable that it was a unanimous decision, and that should be a message for all of us. The issue itself, but also the recommendations and the manner in which it was approved and the way it was approved. It's pretty outstanding. I would love for this to go on forever, but obviously time will restrict that. But I do want to go back. I mean, I want you to reflect a bit on your 8 years and reminisce a bit. Tell me about those 8 years, what it was like for you during that time.
Well, it's been an interesting journey. I mean, I came in to the legislature, as you mentioned, at 21, getting elected at 21, turning 22 after the election, or just before the election, and coming into the legislature and not really knowing, having an understanding of politics and knowing a bit about the process, but learning so much and building relationships on both sides of the aisle and with members of the public and advocates, trying to, make our state a better place for people to live and work and play. And, I'm incredibly grateful that I've had this opportunity. It's been the best experience of my life. And certainly this last year and a half, serving as Speaker of the House, it's been challenging. And this is probably not the circumstance. These are not the circumstances that I probably anticipated when I first decided to run for Speaker, even though the pandemic was certainly present at that point. But to still be dealing with some of the challenges that we face, it's been tough. It's been really hard. But I'm so encouraged by the fortitude of our lawmakers, their persistence in doing this really important work, which is to solve some of the most pressing challenges that we face in our state. And I've been so lucky. I'm grateful to my constituents here in Biddeford who have empowered me to be their voice. And I'm looking forward to the work ahead this year as I complete my final year in the legislature. And we'll see what's next. But for now, I'm looking forward to a small break and having the chance to refresh, renew, whatever word you want to use, but just taking a back seat for a bit and having the opportunity to really reflect upon those 8 years. I think it's going to be hard for me to see the work while I'm still in it. I know it's oftentimes the case where when you take a step back, it really starts to flood those memories of all the work that was done. But I've loved this work. It's been a real honor, and I'm grateful that I decided to make this journey happen right out of college. I've definitely loved it.
Well, you have set a very inspiring and encouraging pathway for our younger people. You certainly have distinguished yourself, and we're very grateful for that, and we thank you for that. But I do have to ask, because you kind of teased it in that last comment, any plans? I mean, you have distinguished yourself. I'm sure it's going to open doors for you. Do you have any plans in that regard going forward?
Not yet. I was thinking, I've been thinking about this. Obviously, I keep getting asked, and I think at the moment I'm just excited about having an opportunity to take a break and step back, because I ran for office, like I said, right out of college. So this at the end of my term, this will be the first time since I've graduated that I've had the opportunity to consider my career in a way that isn't balancing also serving in the legislature. And it is a balancing act. It's not the easiest thing, having to be, I have a full-time job, right? So balancing my full-time job with the legislature and family and so forth. And so I'm excited about thinking about my career and thinking about my family and what it means to shift the focus a bit for the time being. But policy work and serving my community and trying to make our state a better place, that is my true passion in life. And I'm sure I'll find a way to get myself involved yet again in the future.
And I am sure you will as well. I mean, there will be those seeking you out just because of the way you served the public in a leadership capacity, but also maybe not in title, but always there to serve. And I know they sound like inadequate words, but let me say sincerely, thank you so much. It's been a pleasure to know you personally, which I hope will continue, but also professionally, you certainly have stood out regardless of age. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Dana. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Well, as we reflect on today's program, this would be my takeaway. And as people have watched this, it's more spontaneous than it is scripted for sure. And you can probably tell when you hear me, but I would say this week we put the spotlight on the service and the leadership and the story of a young man who has set an example that should be acknowledged and appreciated by all of us. So many times we've heard these words, let your actions speak louder than words. We've also heard that it will be your attitude that defines you to others. And you know what? Speaker Fecteau's works have spoken loudly. When you think of his efforts in equality, when you think about many efforts he has put forward to help our people, our older people, our younger people, our families in general. And as we discussed today, whether it was career technical education, whether it was housing, whether it was childcare, he always took that on with sincerity and always was expressed as a leadership. Yeah, we mentioned this earlier, the strategic plan before the COVID highlighted a number of those issues that I just outlined that he served in leadership roles regarding. But the COVID brought it front and center to really embrace almost a crisis status. And clearly, as you've heard here today or seen, his attitude is to be admired as well. When you think of the world around us today, making public policy is difficult to understand at times because collaboration and compromise are considered bad words. When bringing people to the middle to reach consensus is frowned upon. When you can't disagree without being disagreeable, that's a problem. And when division and extreme positions are the order or the way things get done, it doesn't build a lot of confidence in either the process or the results. But anyone who knows or has worked with Speaker Fecteau knows that that's not his world, nor the way he approaches policy development. Yes, he is determined, he is very dedicated about the issues he's interested in. But I've always found him to be one that's willing to listen. He'll work with you. He acknowledges and appreciates the fact that there's more than one answer when you go about to seek the right answer. The value that he places on relationships that he spoke to today is second to none. As we've all come to know that a leader has the capacity to move people to a common purpose and the character to inspire confidence while doing so. Speaker Fecteau possesses those special qualities or gifts, as I would call them. Indeed, he's a decisive leader. He's one who cares deeply. He gets the job done with a great story to tell. I'm not sure where his future is going to take him. I could give a guess because I think he will be sought after. He has established a strong presence. And I predict for him, whatever the future may be, it'll be a great one. I also predict that he will be missed in the legislature for not only what he did, his work, but also for the way he did it, his attitude. That is Main Take for this week. I hope you've enjoyed the program. I have certainly enjoyed bringing it to you. And I thank Speaker Fecteau, and I thank all of you for being a part of it, and particularly our sponsors. As we say in closing out our program, in a world where you can be anything, be kind to yourself, but also be kind to one another. Until I see you back here, this time next week, enjoy. Take care.